this video, we are going to pick up where we've left last time in the Proverbs on ladyhood. We're still in the first part of the book where it talks about the virtue of a girl before she gets married. In the last video, we have talked about how a girl starts her daily routines. She gets up early to get tea for her parents and greet them liturgically every morning. The next thing that the book talks about is how the girl should present herself and what she needs to learn as a life skill. The text reads, "Be diligent to comb and to wash, and be in a habit of tidiness." In this sentence, the first word is to be diligent. It stands out as an emphatic adverb to the next two verbal nouns, combing and washing. It makes the normal daily action of combing one's hair and washing one's face and hands a requirement and a virtue. You don't take these activities lightly. They're important, which means that it's important for a girl to present herself as clean and tidy. Be diligent bears the idea of doing something repeatedly whenever it's necessary, even in some instances where you may not see the necessity, you should still do it. Now, it makes sense to wash your face or hands repeatedly in a day, especially hands, because girls do stuffs and may help in the family and can get her hands dirty. But why combing the hair all the time? Now, in ancient China, girls didn't just leave their hair down naturally like that. They kept a hairstyle and tied them together. But unlike in modern times when we have rubber bands and stuff like that, they used cloth ropes, and it doesn't really work very well all the time. So it's important for them to check if their hair is tidy or not. That's not only about being tidy, this is also a symbol of dignity. A girl or a woman who doesn't take care of her hairstyle and have messy hair is considered either mentally unwell or sexually abused or demonically possessed. And that's definitely something to be avoided if she wants to get married, and she does want to get married. To be in a habit of tidiness talks about the same thing. It's a parallel to the last sentence, but more broad in its sense. It includes more than just face, hands, and hairs. It also includes her clothes, her belongings, the way she manages her room and stuffs. It's very telling about what kind of person she is. Is she an organized and well-disciplined person, or is she careless and childish? If she is careless or childish, how will she be able to serve her husband when she gets married? And who would want to marry a girl like that in the first place? Tidiness in the Chinese characters also means to be clean. So you can get the idea here. She is a dustless, clean girl, very pure, very organized, very dignified. That's how she needs to present herself. The word for being in a habit is, in fact, to love. This means to strive for, to work hard on, to keep in that state and don't lose sight of it. So the requirement is quite clear. The next one is to learn needlework. The sentence reads, learn needlework and don't indulge yourself in laziness. Like I said in the last episode, illiteracy of a female was considered a virtue in ancient China. However, it doesn't mean that she can be good for nothing. It's important for her to learn some life skills. Now, this type of life skills is not about make a living. It's about serving or ministering, if you like, her husband, because that's what a girl was for. We can easily understand why it would be needlework here. It seems to be a common thing throughout cultures, and it is a well-preserved tradition too. I remember when I was a kid in my primary school and middle school, my female classmates sometimes would bring their needlework to the class and just do it. In my early years, many of my clothes and pants were the needleworks of my mom and grandma, and so were my dad's clothes and pants. You can also find YouTube videos about how to do some needleworks with modern machines and do really nice and beautiful works. It's pretty nice, actually. But that to be said, there are some specific background and concerns about the mentioning of needlework rather than cooking, which will be talked about in later texts. Clothes were expensive before industrial age. Unlike today, if your clothes or pants are broken, you just throw it away or give it away and buy a new one. In ancient times, clothes cost a fortune. When it's broken, you'd better mend it. And it takes needlework to do that. And that became the primary job of a wife or a mother. If a wife is not able to do needlework, the whole family-in-law will despise her because she has, as we say in the idiom, dumb hands and dumb feet. Basically, it means that she's good for nothing. And you definitely don't want to be despised by your husband's family when you get married. That would really give you a hard time, and it's a hard lifetime. You don't want that to happen. That's why it's very crucial to learn needleworks. On the other hand, needleworks is also a very lady thing for two reasons. One, it can be very artistic and creative. It's not necessarily reflected on everyday needlework so obviously, but the skills to do it well sometimes require some artistic thread. Usually a well-done needlework has beautifully tied knots and very organized and even spaces between those knots. It's beautiful and it needs to be beautiful because her husband will wear it and present himself to other people in work and society. So beauty is actually important, and ladies are good at these artistic and creative works. Secondly, it's also a detailed work. In ancient China, most men were farmers. They were trained to do hard labors, not detailed works. And they just couldn't do that because they didn't deal with details in their daily lives, and they didn't think about things in terms of details. Um, they have a great strength to do hard labors, but that would be too much to do needlework. And they can definitely destroy the cloth if they use too much strength. But females do a better job at detailed works, and their handy strength fits the needlework well. That to be said, not every female wants to sit down and learn needleworks. And this is what this teaching is all about. It asks the girl not to indulge herself in laziness, which means you should work hard on learning needleworks. It's a crucial for daily life. It's the latest thing, and you don't want to be good for nothing and worthless in your husband's family. Yes, a young girl doesn't have to do everything for herself because she still has her parents, but don't get used to it. One day, you're going to get married and you should be able to do what is expected of you. Now, moving on to the next sentence, it deals with the most basic relationships a married girl has with her parents and with her other older family members. Well, but what about younger family members? She will learn how to treat younger family members by imitating older family members. Remember, it was a hierarchical society. Even within the family, the hierarchical structure is very strict. And the patterns between different levels of hierarchs are usually the same. The text reads, "Be silent at the rebuke of your parents." That's how a married girl should learn in the relationship with her parents. It sounds pretty negative, as if all the girl has with her parents in terms of relationship is order and submission. Well, of course, that's not the case in reality. The point is that, remember, this is a preparation for the girls to get married. So the author expects bad things to happen in real life and teach girls how to cope with these negative occasions. If she learns how to cope with the rebuke of her parents, she can also deal with the rebuke and discontent from her parents-in-law. And because it's a hierarchical structure and people think of social affairs and dynamics hierarchically, when parents rebuke the girl, she is not supposed to react violently. By saying violently, I mean she shouldn't argue with her parents or try to justify herself. First of all, it is assumed that the parents are usually right because they are older and have more experiences in life and therefore have more wisdom. When they rebukes or corrects, they are usually right and should be obeyed. The girl, on the other hand, due to her young age, doesn't really know better. Now we are talking about a girl before 10 years old. In ancient China, a girl is usually get married when she was 12 or 13. I guess that's the case in many cultures. My grandma was married to my grandpa when she was 14, and her first son, which is my oldest uncle, was born before she was 20. I think she was about 16 or 18 or something. But anyways, the girl in the text would be even younger, and she really does not know any better than her parents. So when her parents teach her and correct her and rebuke her, she is supposed to listen for the most part. Now, the very fact that the author asks the girl to be silent is that he takes into account the fact that the parents sometimes can be wrong. But the girl obeys nevertheless. Being silent means more than just not to argue. It also means to obey. Just do what parents say silently. This is to play a hierarchical card. The hierarchical structure is necessary to be maintained, and the way to maintain it is to show respect. Being silent and submissive is to show respect to the parent and reflect the hierarchical structure. A girl shouldn't be rebellious to her parents. We have mentioned last time that the filial piety is very important in ancient China, and it's almost understood in a religious sense. This idea will go through the whole book. You'll see it coming up again and again. So filial piety is neatly intertwined within the hierarchical structure. If you don't be silent at the rebuke of your parents, you not only disrespect the hierarchical structure, you are also showing disregard to filial piety, which was seen in ancient China the greatest rebellion of all. Even an emperor needs to make sure that he has a good reputation for filial piety. So filial piety is the primary cardinal virtue of all virtues. And since a self-justification will be regarded as a gesture against filial piety and the hierarchical structure, which are fundamental to a society, it is better just not to argue and be submissive and do it the right way. Such a small sacrifice of being wrong is worth paying for the greater good of the social structure, even within the family. And usually the parents are right anyways. We will see in the future that this pattern applies to the relationship between husbands and wives too. In an ancient Confucius tradition, a female is submissive to parents before marriage, to her husband after marriage, and to her son after her husband passes away. So it shouldn't be surprising to us that we see this teaching of submission to angry parents are put here first in the discussion of the girl's family relationships. The second part of the sentence reads, ask for instruction in the presence of your older brothers and sisters. Now, literally, this is talking about brothers and their wives, that is, sisters-in-law. This is very crucially connected to the first part of the sentence. We have already discussed why submission in silence is so crucial in that scenario. But submission doesn't always solve the problems for three things. First, like I said, the parents can sometimes be wrong. And secondly, parents don't usually give instructions in their anger, and their rebuke doesn't really teach girls how to do things properly. Thirdly, how indeed can a girl cope with her parents' anger in certain scenarios, and how can she avoid it later? These are the things that she needs to ask someone who already had an experience with that, which is her older siblings and her older sisters-in-law. As older brothers, they know their parents better in terms of their temper and personality and what they like and what they don't. So in certain scenarios, it's good for the girl to understand what the parents want so they will all be happy. Now, why don't the parents just tell the girl what they want? Or why are they making it so complicated? That's another aspect of Chinese culture, and it's actually very well known. Chinese people are famous for not being very expressive in their need or feeling, but expect others to know. The reason for that is that they think asking for something bluntly is not polite, and expressing a feeling bluntly is sometimes even embarrassing or disgusting, to put it in a negative way. That doesn't mean that they don't have the need or they don't feel love. They definitely do, and everyone knows that. The point is that a social awkwardness must be avoided in these scenarios. Therefore, we have a very strange dynamics within social relationships that people's need and feeling are not expressed but are supposed to be known by some hint or common sense. And that's not just in China, you can see that in Japan too. It's really difficult to grasp if you are not experienced with certain social relationships. I mean, the need or the feeling. When a girl starts to learn how to serve her parents, the same thing happens. And she needs someone more experienced to tell her what to do. Her older siblings would be a perfect choice. They will be at her rank in terms of hierarchy, but a higher class. So the verb used here is not merely to ask, but to ask politely and respectfully. This is the same word used when people invite an idol deity to their house. So by comparison, you can see the level of respectfulness here. So the brothers will tell her all the information she needs to know concerning what to do and what the parents want and everything. The sisters-in-law, however, has an interesting function, an interesting role here. Bear in mind still that this is to prepare a girl for marriage. So the sisters-in-law will need to serve their parents-in-law too. And they probably would experience the same uncomfortableness under the hands of their parents-in-law, and even more so since they didn't grow up in their husband's family, in some cases. Um, they will provide experiences of how to cope with feelings, frustrations, and what to do practically, and how to mend the relationship. In the future, the girl will be in the same position as her sisters-in-law, so it's good to have a sort of foretaste of what it would be like after marriage, just from learning from them. Of course, apart from those specific issues, there are general things and instructions that can be learned from older family members. This is today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And next time, we will continue the first part of this book and finish this part. And then we will move on to the expectations for the girl's life after marriage, which is the majority of lifetime for ancient Chinese women.